Hello, Year 8. Welcome to a new unit on a revolution connected to the French Revolution. Now, I want you to get the PowerPoint in the folder open to the first slide, and I want you to look at the four statues that you can see there in front of you. The first one is a man called William Wilberforce. So he was an English politician who lived in the 18th century. The other one, a bit more famous, is an American president, Abraham Lincoln, who lived in the 19th century. The third one, if you're going clockwise, is a man called Toussaint Louverture. And finally, you can see there on the left, a man called the Abbé Gregoire. Now, I just want you to think, don't go into Google or anything. What do you think these people might have in common? Who do you think is the odd one out and why? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about that. Pause this while I do that. Okay, brilliant. So, some things that students think these people might have in common would be that they're all important men. Their significance is represented by the fact that they have quite large and elaborate statues. Now, students who might know one or two of the figures will start to work out what they might have in common. So Abraham Lincoln, the American president, famous for leading his country through the American Civil War, which was predominantly about the issue of slavery. The man that you can see on the bottom right, Toussaint Louverture, you can see that he has a sword, that he's an African man, and that he might have had some connection to slavery. And for those of you who are incredibly inquisitive, you might have picked out some of the words on William Wilberforce's epitaph at the bottom there. And one of the lines on there says, he freed England from the guilt of the slave trade. So, and Abbe Gregoire was a famous abolitionist, and that's someone who believes in ending the slave trade. So that's what these four men have in common, and that's a theme for our first lesson, which is, of course, the issue of slavery, the abolition, the ending of slavery, and thirdly, the role that different people played in that movement. Okay, so there's some detail about Abbe Gregoire. So he's connected to our study of the French Revolution. He was a priest. He was one of the signatories of the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Man. So if you remember that famous painting of everyone pointing to the light as they held up this document, he was there, and he opposed slavery before the French Revolution, running a group called the Society of the Friends of Blacks. Um, and that's an interesting quote from the Abbe Gregoire there. Mortals are equal. It is not birth, but virtue alone that makes the difference. Some details here about Abraham Lincoln. I'll give you a chance to read that. And this famous image of Abraham Lincoln after his famous proclamation in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. So I want you to write that down as the first key word of the lesson. Emancipation. Emancipation. It means to free, to liberate, and that's one of his titles, the Great Emancipator. So have a look at that source and read the accompanying text. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do, pause this video, and I want you to answer that question. What does this painting suggest about how Africans got their freedom, enslaved Africans got their freedom from this image? Okay. Now, William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was an English politician. He was the leader of the UK movement to stop the trade in slaves. As I said before, he was an abolitionist. That's a group of people who really strongly believed in ending the transatlantic slave trade. Um, some key details there about the number of Africans kidnapped and transported across the Atlantic between 1604 and 1807. About 50% of those transported were transported across the 18th century. So that's the century we've really been studying. That's known as the high tide of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Now, this is a very famous quote of William Wilberforce's. Have a read through of it. And then I'd like you to answer the question on the left-hand side. Who does this quote suggest was responsible for the abolition of the slave trade, or for enslaved Africans getting their freedom? Okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to answer that. Okay. So you should have a much better idea of what these people have in common. Now, in an ordinary lesson, I wouldn't have told you a great deal about the person on the bottom right of this slide. It would have been revealed a bit more slowly, but that's okay. You still don't know where the statue is. I haven't told you that. And you don't really know why he might be famous. So that's something I want you to start looking into. There's a video in this folder. It's labeled number 1, Henry Louis Gates. I want you to play the video, watch it all the way through, and then I'd like you to answer the question, and why might he be important? Okay. So I'd like you to copy this information down into your books, because our study is going to look at the tiny Caribbean island of Haiti. Now, in 1791, right through to 1804, this was the site of one of the great events of world history, the Haitian Revolution. And that's going to be the focus of our inquiry over the next few lessons. So some key details about Haiti. It's just to the south of the United States, east of Jamaica. It's about the same size as Wales, so that's a unit of measurement which we give for most things, but it is. And it has a population of just over 10 million people. Some of you may have come across Haiti in your studies in geography. It was the victim of a major earthquake in 2010, and the country is still recovering from that. The statue of Toussaint Louverture was located opposite the National Parliament building in the current capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. Right, now I'd like you to pause this video and now open up the second video, labeled number 2, Toussaint Louverture, and then I'd like you to list 3 things that he's achieved. And once you've done that, press play on this file again. Okay. Now, you would have come across some of his achievements and why he is regarded by some people to be a remarkable individual, a significant figure in history. What I want you to do is read a bit about Toussaint. So go to his Wikipedia page, and I want you to just write down an answer, a brief answer of about 2 paragraphs to that question. What does this suggest about how Africans got their freedom? So that's the 4th time you're doing that this time. And then once you've done that, taking a couple of notes on what you found remarkable about him. And finally, just writing down the key question for the next 9 lessons, and that is, why should we remember the Haitian Revolution? So at the time, it was seen as one of the most significant events in world history, but sadly, it hasn't been given the same consideration as, for instance, the French Revolution, which many people know about. We want to find out why that is, and exactly how much credit we should give to the leaders of the Haitian Revolution for carrying off the only successful slave rebellion in history. Okay,